Good Thursday afternoon, guys. My name is Jerry Miller, and welcome to the I Love CVille Show. Thank you kindly for joining us on a glorious and gorgeous day to be above the mud. We are live in Charlottesville, Albemarle County, across the Commonwealth, the world, on the I Love CVille Network. We're presented by the good doctor, Scott Wagner of Scott Wagner Integrated Medicine. Who's got your back? Dr. Wagner has your back. Scott Wagner Integrated Medicine. Ting Crazy Fast Internet powers the network. Crazy Fast Internet from Ting Fiber Internet. Once you get a taste of Ting, you will never, ever, ever go back. A lot I want to cover today. In about 10 minutes, we will welcome Matt Harmon to the broadcast. The gentleman has been kind enough to give us a bottle of Harmony wine and a sparkling rosé that will be enjoyed esta noche with the better half. And I think she's going to absolutely love it as much as I do. Matt Harmon, T-minus 9 minutes away, will chitter-chatter with a founder who is going to revolutionize the wine business by selling wine through digital platforms direct to the consumer and taking out the overhead in the middle that makes this bottle more expensive than perhaps it should be. That story in about 9 minutes. 6 minutes from now, I'm going to tell you what the New York Times called Charlottesville, Virginia. I'll give you a little teaser. The world's newspaper said Charlottesville was one of the best and top travel destinations in the country. This came out days ago. We'll explain why the New York Times had this high praise for Charlottesville, and we'll assess what that's going to do to the economy in Charlottesville and Albemarle County in Central Virginia. Do me a favor, hit the like button and share the show anywhere you're watching, on any social media platform you're watching the show upon. I want to start first with the topic that we've covered quite well on today's show, but needs to be even more in the news. We're talking upzoning in the city of Charlottesville. CVille plans together, currently aggregating as much information as possible to present to leadership in the city about creating more zoning opportunities in this 10.2 square mile city we call Charlottesville. Here's the nitty-gritty and very straightforward in layman's terms. If this is approved, and I think it most certainly will, and this is going to be approved by the council that is determined after November's general election. So we have some time before this happens, but not too much time. But if upzoning is approved in the city of Charlottesville, that will give homeowners and developers alike more options with housing stock. A single-family detached home, otherwise zoned R1, could have options, and those options may be a cottage in the backyard, an ADU, auxiliary dwelling unit, in the basement. Heck, you could knock down the single-family detached home and build a duplex, a triplex, or a quadplex. Currently, more than 50% of the housing stock in the city of Charlottesville is zoned R1, meaning it can only have one home on the piece of land. The thinking is, if you increase housing stock supply, right now it's very limited, and because it's very limited, prices are going through the roof. So the thinking is, if you increase the housing stock and you add more supply to the ecosystem, that additional supply could create affordability because you have more homes to choose from. If you go to Walmart and there was only one candy bar on the shelf, that candy bar could pretty much charge whatever the hell that candy bar wanted. But because there's hundreds of candy bars on the shelf, they have to compete against each other. And that competition creates accountability, it creates innovation, and more importantly, it creates price competition. So this is economics. If you change the zoning in Charlottesville and you add more supply to the city, the thinking is this will keep prices a little more in check because it will give buyers more housing stock to choose from, more candy bars to purchase. I want to dig a little deeper than that, and I'm going to ask questions we all should be asking. And before I ask those questions, I want to stipulate this. I am all for men and women, families, individual people having a piece of the American dream, and whether we want to admit it or not, an aspect of that American dream is home ownership, the generational wealth that comes with it, the opportunity to stay in one spot, raise your kids, make memories, and keep your mortgage fixed for a 30-year period of time as inflation impacts price points all over the world, increasing the cost of goods. I'm all for that. I think we should ask ourselves, however, the following questions. If we change the zoning in Charlottesville and allow more density in our 10.2 square mile city, will our infrastructure follow suit to accommodate said density? If you 2x, 3x, heck, 4x the supply of housing, what is that going to mean? It's going to mean more people in the city. It's going to mean more people riding public transportation. It's going to mean more children in schools. It's going to mean more vehicles on the roads, more vehicles parked on the streets. These are common sense, and common sense statements. Now, before we change the zoning and create more zoning opportunity, I think it's paramount for leadership to think big picture. Schools and capacity, roads and infrastructure, public transit, and if more people come to the city, can said public transit, who is already struggling right now from a consistency, showing up on time standpoint, they're already struggling right now. What happens if we add thousands of more people on those public transportation lines? These are fair questions. Fair questions. As many of you know, I'm running for Albemarle County Board of Supervisors. If I'm fortunate to get elected, these are questions that I will most certainly ask. That's not to say I'm opposed to housing. That's not to say I'm opposed to more housing. That's not to say I'm opposed to strategic development. I just like to think of everything big picture. The next question you have to ask yourself is this. If the city of Charlottesville creates more housing stock by changing the zoning and getting more opportunity with land in the city, what is the trickle-over impact that's going to have on Albemarle County? My prediction is a lot of the individuals, a lot of the families that have resources, and whenever someone says has resources, that means they got money. We'll cut to the chase. The families in the city that have money, cash, green, paper, stacks of paper, they're going to take those stacks and they will, some of them, sprint outside of Charlottesville in the city for fear of quality of life issues that are tied to enhanced or extra density from a population standpoint. My crystal ball says that Charlottesvillians in the city will sprint to neighborhoods in the county of Albemarle. Now remember, if you live in a neighborhood in the county of Albemarle and you have a neighborhood that is managed or governed by a homeowners association, those HOAs supersede any zoning changes a municipality is trying to make. So if you live in Redfields, Foxcroft, Mosby Mountain, if you live in Farmington, Glenmore, Keswick, Mill Creek, Mountain Valley Farm, Lake Renovia, just off the top of my head, your HOA docs supersede what the municipality can do from a zoning standpoint. So my prediction is that zoning changes in the city of Charlottesville may create more supply in Charlottesville City, and that additional supply could undoubtedly impact affordability because more supply means price competition. But the trickle-over impact, and yes, it's called trickle-over economics, is Albemarle County and the neighborhoods that are controlled by homeowners associations will undoubtedly uptick in value because of these zoning changes in the city of Charlottesville. How many people know where the city-county line is? Few, if any, right? So these HOA neighborhoods, if this zoning change does happen, these zoning opportunities do happen, these HOA neighborhoods will see impact value like they've seen recently due to COVID, perhaps even more tailwinds put behind this change, perhaps even more tailwinds than COVID had on home values. Time will tell. We'll spend more conversation, more intellect and brain power having this chitter chatter with Keith Smith on Real Talk, our real estate show, Tuesdays and Fridays on the I Love CVille Network at 10:15 a.m. One more item out of the notebook before we get to a gentleman that I think you're going to love, and Matt Harmon of Harmony Wines. I want to give the New York Times some attention. The New York Times recently, in their print newspaper, more importantly in their digital publication that everyone reads more than print, they called Charlottesville one of the best travel destinations in the country. Now, I know this, Judah knows this, Matt, who you're soon going to meet, knows this. Charlottesville's got dope amenities, man. We got dope restaurants. We got dope music venues. We got dope places to hike. We got UVA sports that are crushing it, baby. I mean, they're absolutely crushing it right now. We got the mountains. We got the Rivanna River. We got nature. We got the downtown mall. We got the University of Virginia. The amenities are off the chain. We cannot argue with that. That's why we live around here. But when the world's newspaper says this is one of the best places to travel in the country, and they base it on this fact, vaccination rates. The city of Charlottesville has a vaccination rate that is over 60% and climbing every single day. Hell, Albemarle County is third in the Commonwealth from a vaccination standpoint. The city of Charlottesville is number one. You take the world's newspaper, and you have the world's newspaper put on their digital platform for everyone to read that Charlottesville is one of the safest places to visit from a tourism standpoint, and you better believe the rest of 2021, as predicted on this network, will be a roaring 20s situation of epic proportions. We're going to be sitting at restaurants all over the city, enjoying a glass of Harmony wine with Yankees, Californians, Texans, Midwesterners, Floridians. This is the world's newspaper. Europeans, South Americans visiting our town because the New York Times says it's safe to visit and safe to vacation here. I predict the back half of this year and into 2022 we'll see economic growth that Charlottesville has not seen perhaps ever. Time will tell, but mark that down. J-Dubs, Judah Wickow, our director. Let's go to the studio camera, my friend, and let's welcome a gentleman that I'm excited to introduce you to, and Matt Harmon. Matt, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Doing very well. Thank you for joining us. Introduce yourself to everybody, please.
So, my name is Matt Harmon. I'm owner and founder of Harmony Wines. Grew up in Charlottesville, so it's great being on your show.
You went to Charlottesville High School?
I went to Albemarle.
Albemarle High School.
Yes.
Okay, so tell me what it was like to be a Patriot. What year did you graduate? What did you do any sports? Teachers that had an impact on you?
Oh wow. Okay. I graduated 2011. I want to say some of the most impactful teachers I had was Janine Shilburn.
Okay.
She was my math teacher.
Okay.
She actually taught myself and my two younger brothers. So, she was one of the main people that I always went to go visit after class. And Albemarle was a lot of fun. I can't say that I know a lot of people may say that their high school years were a little iffy, but I enjoyed it thoroughly.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
How about, I'm always interested in this. You graduated in 2011.
Yes.
Was it crowded? What was it like? Did you have the educational cottages, otherwise called trailers? How was the curriculum? And we're absolutely going to get to wine here. I just like to get a feel for what it's like.
I would say that I didn't notice it being crowded.
Okay.
However, in my growing up and talking with other people from different areas, across the United States, I noticed how big our class was compared to other people's classes. But we did not. I want to say that my junior year, I think the trailers kind of went away.
Okay.
So I want to say it was maybe downsizing a little bit.
Did you feel challenged?
I did. I definitely felt challenged. I think it was a lot of good education. I think, my teachers definitely knew how to push the right buttons for me. And they probably say I pushed their buttons as well.
That's good.
But yeah, I thought I had a good group of teachers that definitely pushed the right buttons to get me going.
So you graduate from Albemarle.
Yes.
What transpires after that? And we're going to get to the flip book of you now being an entrepreneur.
Yeah. So I, unlike a lot of people, I jumped straight into the workforce. Went straight to work at UVA and was working for the library and their project of moving all the books out of Alderman into the Ivy Stacks.
Nice.
So I was a part of that project, and it was good for me, I think, to kind of step away from the schooling, and from there did a lot of traveling. And yeah, that was what I did right after high school. Yeah.
So I was talking about this. I got a 3-year-old. If my little guy comes to me and says, "Dad, I don't want to go to college. I'm going to go straight to being an entrepreneur. I want to go straight to maybe working for the family business." You know what I would say? I would be like, "Let's go. Let's go." Now, when I was growing up, if I'd send that to my dad, he'd be like, "Nah, dog. You're going to college." This whole college model seems so damn broken. I mean, people coming out 6 figures plus in debt, a debt that they're going to be paying off probably till when their kids maybe think about going to college or not. Walk me through that thinking.
For me, I felt as though I knew I wanted to do my own business.
Okay.
I wasn't sure what that business was going to be. I was the kid that in, first grade, second grade, when they asked you what you want to do, it was football and own my own business.
Okay.
Now, didn't know what that business was, but for me, I felt like college I wasn't going to gain anything from going, and if I needed to get a degree for something that I wanted to do later on, I always had the option to go back. But right off the bat, I was like, I just don't see the benefit for me in it right now.
Respect. So did you always see yourself as an entrepreneur?
Yeah. I was the kid that was selling candy to the other kids that
I did that.
Their parents wouldn't allow them to have candy.
Sure.
So.
At lunch, you had it in the backpack?
Had it in the backpack.
And would you mark it up a little bit?
Yeah, just a little bit. Yeah, just to mark it up just a little bit so you can buy shoes, clothes, whatever you want, hang out with friends. Yeah, that was me.
Did you have an aha moment where you were like, entrepreneurship is what I want to do? Was it the candy or was it something later?
So it was my senior year in high school. A friend of mine and I, we started a t-shirt company.
Nice. I've done that.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
Yeah, so we started this t-shirt company, and this t-shirt company consisted of just gentlemen's wear. So we started off with t-shirts, and then we started getting into custom bow ties for people.
Nice.
Yeah. So that was...
Is the custom bow tie market big with teenagers?
I think in like the early to mid 2000s, of like that 2009, 2012 area, it was huge. So that was big for us. I mean, that was when I really realized that, I think doing my own thing is definitely something I want to do.
What made bow ties boom?
Honestly, I can't tell you. I know it was like a bow ties and socks era there for a while. It was, if you had anything that was kind of funky for a bow tie and anything funky for socks, it was like the style. It was definitely the style.
So you go from dabbling in entrepreneurship to, with bow ties, with candy, now to wine. Now, I love the idea. So my businesses are very much B2C, business to consumer. This is what your business model is. The wine space, the beverage space, the alcohol space is competitive at I was going to use profanity right there. Okay, it's extremely competitive.
Very.
It's extremely competitive. There's a lot of options. You need bank to get in this space. That's safe to say, right?
Yes.
That's safe to say here. So explain to me why wine first.
So I won't forget this moment because it was very spur of the moment. I was watching I think it was kind of like a documentary on a winery, and I was with some friends, and as the show's going on, they're walking through the vineyards, and I was like, this is after visiting tons of wineries. I was like, I think I could do something like that and change the model a little bit. And my love for wine and wanting to express that with family and friends in a way that they would understand it and get them involved into something that I feel like they would thoroughly enjoy, really motivated and pushed me to do it my way. And that's where my love really just took off.
So you would say you are, what's the word for someone who's like super into wine and like all the nuanced aspects of wine?
So I'm not a sommelier.
Okay.
I'm not a sommelier.
Okay.
I have a couple of friends who are, but they can pick up a note and tell you where it's from just based on smelling, sight, and a small taste. I am not that nuanced, but what I do love about wine is, for me, it is something that it doesn't have to be that nuanced for you to enjoy it.
Okay, respect.
And I think that's what I really wanted the Harmony wine brand to be. Hence the name Harmony. I wanted to bring that peace and, family and friends aspect to it.
Neil Williamson just shared the post. We love you, Neil Williamson. He's watching. He is one of the partners of Well Hung Vineyards that's watching right now. His brand and his partner's brand has exploded to a restaurant also in Gordonsville. So he's watching because he loves wine as well. So tell me why you love wine. I love beer because I'm a beer guy. It's an opportunity for social, human connection. It's an opportunity. It's a reason to get together. It's a reason to help you relax after a long ass day, right?
Yeah,
I
definitely.
mean, just like wind down. How about you with wine?
Some of the same reasons that you said. I think the social aspect of being able to sit around with family and friends and have a glass of wine or having it with dinner, and a lot of times it can elevate the conversation or elevate the food. And one of the things that I loved about wine was that whether there was something for everybody. There's people who like vodka, like bourbon, and they'll never do the other.
Right.
And with wine, there's something on the spectrum for everybody, whether it's sweet, dry, semi-sweet, semi-dry. You can find something that you're probably going to like, and it's a good conversation starter usually.
Walk me through the conversation. You're with your friends, and you're getting into the wine game here.
Yeah.
Were your friends like pinkies up, dude? Pinkies
Yeah,
up? What were they?
yeah.
No, did they go bow ties to wine? Is that what they said, Matt?
So it's funny because I just had a conversation with a friend of mine. We were on Clubhouse, and he was telling me, he was like, when you first said you wanted to start wine, he's like, I back you 100%, but he was like, wine? I mean,
yeah.
I saw you doing something, but not wine. And, the amount of support I've gotten from not only the Charlottesville area, but friends and family has been really good. And just the pushing me to always do what's best for me. That's a lot what the conversation was. So
respect. Respect. All right, walk us through the business model. How does it work?
Yeah. So when I first started Harmony Wine, I started it because I was laid off because of COVID.
Okay. Was it UVA?
No. So I actually left UVA because I wanted to get into sales and marketing to understand what it would be like to have
build a brand.
Correct.
Okay.
And from there, I started working in October of 2019.
Okay.
Which
tough time.
Yeah. Unknowingly.
Right.
And in March, late March, early April, was laid off.
Okay.
From there, it became, what do you do?
Okay.
And I decided to jump in all the way.
Okay.
And I reached out and found a company in Texas that I work with very closely. And they helped me pick the grapes and the wines that I want. I come up with the label. and the types of wines I want, taste them, and slap my label on them. The government has to approve said labels, which is a whole process.
Is that pain in the ass?
A lot. Yeah. It's
Dude,
it's
so
a
you
lot.
found a company in Texas?
Yes.
In March of COVID?
Yes.
Last year?
Yep.
Okay, how does that happen?
So one of the people we were talking about before we started the show was Gary Vee.
Yeah.
And one of his key...
Gary Vaynerchuk.
Yeah.
We both respect his content.
Great content.
Yeah.
One of his famous sayings is, Google is your mother.
Okay.
And I was Googling everything about wine and how to start a brand, where to find companies that will work with you, what I needed to do, what permits I needed. And I found all the content I needed, all the permits I needed, and found the company in Texas that was willing to work with me. And that's how it really just took off. And it was a lot, I don't want to say it was easy, but it was a lot easier than what I had prepared myself for as far as finding the brand. I was like, yeah, so this is what I want to do. And they were like, yep, we can do that. Just, this is all you need to do. This is what you need to send us.
So much I want to cover with you. I love Gary Vee's content. Anyone that's not familiar with Gary Vee, he's a serial entrepreneur. He had dropped out of college.
Yeah.
Then when he dropped out of college, he went to work for his dad's liquor store. And when he's working for his dad's liquor store, he sees that his dad is doing things in very archaic fashion. Then he is one of the first people, Gary Vee, to utilize podcasting and the internet to create content. He creates Wine Library TV. Wine Library TV, in its very early stage, is Gary in front of a crappy camera drinking wine.
Yeah.
But it blows up. And Wine Library TV gets such a cult following that he utilizes this Wine Library TV brand to take his father's business to proportions that they never thought they would see. I mean, we're talking hundreds of millions of dollars.
Yeah.
And now Gary Vee is a serial entrepreneur. He's got an ownership stake in a lot of businesses, owns an advertising and branding agency that's one of the best in the world, and, to Matt's point, created Empathy Wines. And Empathy Wines is a B2C business to consumer, where they cut out the middlemen. And he exited Empathy Wines after selling it to Constellation Brands at an obscene amount of money. That's what's in store for Matt Harmon's future, an exit to Constellation Brands with Harmony Wine here. We're gonna put it into the universe by speaking it out loud.
Yeah.
So give me the mechanics here. You got a strategic partner in Texas. Mm-hmm. Then what happens?
From there, I create labels. Those labels have to be approved by the government.
Why is that?
So on each label, it has the government warning, how much alcohol is in there.
Okay.
And they need to make sure that basically that your fonts are legible,
okay,
and that everything is able to read, so that nobody's liable for the Surgeon General stuff.
Understood. Okay, got it.
That process was sped up because COVID.
Okay.
And usually it takes anywhere from 2 to 3 months. My process was anywhere from, I want to say, 2 to 3 weeks.
Okay.
And
so that's a perk of COVID.
That was a perk of COVID for me. From that point, once it gets approved, I send them said labels printed. They will either, one of two things. If I choose for some ungodly reason to want to label all of my wine labels myself, they'll send them to me without labels.
Empty bottles?
Well, not empty bottles, but they'll send me the bottles.
Or the bottle with wine?
The bottle with wine,
okay,
and if for some ungodly reason I want to actually put the stickers on them myself, I can do so, or I can send them the labels and they'll put them on for me, and then they ship me the wine. From there, I have stock and people can buy online.
So the bottles of wine are labeled, they're corked, the packaging is done.
Yep.
It's approved by the man.
Yep.
They're mailed to you.
Yep.
How many bottles of wine are mailed to you at one time? And how do you store these?
So one of the things that I had to do, for ABC purposes, you have to have efficient storage.
Okay.
And your wine can't be on the floor. So
okay,
I had to get storage, a little bit of a storage facility, not a storage facility, but like storage shelving. And that wasn't too difficult. You go to Lowe's, you find some storage materials. And
does ABC check?
They do.
Really?
Yeah. ABC will check.
Okay.
For me, because I am not I guess you would say like a location where people are going to come in, drink wine, and sit.
Uh-huh.
My checkups aren't going to be as extensive as a
tasting room,
or a brewery.
Okay.
So for me, it's just making sure I have adequate shelving and I have the proper space and stuff like that. But yeah, they come in and check. And
so does this start at the basement at first of the crib?
Yeah,
That is so dope, dude.
Yeah.
So much respect.
Yeah, for
Love
me,
that, dude.
Yeah, for me, it was good to when the truck finally shows up and drops the wine off. It was a feeling.
So pallets of bottles.
Pallets of bottles. So my first shipment was 1 pallet of wine, which was great. I mean, it showed up on my birthday in December, so that was dead serious, man. Yeah.
What a birthday! So when was this?
This was December of last year.
December of last year. All right, I'm going to try to do some quick math. You told me you graduated in 2011, so I'd say you're 28, 29.
28, yeah.
Okay, so you're 28. So December of last year, you get a pallet of wine with your label on it that you designed.
Yep.
That you created because they're giving you tasting and samples, and you're like, this is good, this is what I want it to be. Dude, what did that make you feel like?
Honestly, it's funny that it at first it didn't really hit me, but over time it started. When
you saw the credit card statement.
Yeah. That definitely hit me. But at first it didn't really hit me, and over time it started to really sink in. Like, wow, I did this whole thing during COVID, and my goal for 2020. Before we knew how serious COVID was going to be, was I'm going to start my own business. I had no idea how it was going to happen or what events would lead up to it. But yeah, by the end of it, I looked up and was like, well, I actually did the thing. So
that's so much respect for you.
It was great.
So how do you move a pallet of wine?
By hand.
Yeah.
So I called my brother, and me and him loaded it all up, and we're hustling back and forth inside the house, and one of my neighbors at the time was like, hey man, I get it, I'm in the beverage world, I'll definitely help you load these up and to take them into the house. So it was really nice of him. So yeah.
Okay, so how do you sell a pallet of wine?
So selling a pallet of wine, one of the good things that I did right before COVID was I had started a podcast called Bad Guy Good Wine.
Cool.
On that,
Bad Guy Good Wine?
Bad Guy Good Wine.
Tell me the title, the meaning of the title.
So originally the title came from, friend group chats and the conversations we have. And so I used that thought process of, my opinions on the business world and entrepreneurship, and said, whether you think I'm a good guy or a bad guy, the wine's always going to be good. So on each episode, I was interviewing people from the beverage world, entrepreneurs, and we would do it over a glass of wine. And that allowed me to kind of get my way into the industry and rub up close to people who were already doing things.
Yeah,
and
smart.
From there, I mean, Gary Vee's kind of laid out that whole model. Right?
Yeah.
So that allowed me to, once I got my wine, I was like, hey, remember that idea I said I had about, I got the wine? And that was just leading into a conversation.
But you're a good guy.
Yeah.
You're not a bad guy.
Yeah.
I've just spent like 20, 30 minutes with you. You're a cool dude. You ain't a bad guy.
Yeah.
Why'd you call yourself bad guy?
I think it was more of a play on words, and I thought it would definitely catch the eye of people, and which it did.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was where it went to.
So this is basically the model here. Someone who's experienced in the game, in the F&B game. Hey, I got a podcast. I want to give your brand some exposure, personal and professional. You want to join us? Everyone wants to do that, especially now with digital and social media being so ubiquitous, right?
Right.
And once they're on there, you're talking about them, and then you say, oh, by the way, I'm the founder of Harmony Wine, and I got these bottles of wine that I need to move. And you build a relationship through the podcast, and once the relationship is built through the podcast and you got some personal equity with them, next thing you do, what about Harmony Wine? Is that the game?
Yeah. I mean, it definitely allowed me to at least get my foot in the door. They're like, yeah, I'll listen to you. I'll taste the wine. And from there, having faith in the product that I've, put time and effort into, knowing that it was going to be good and that they would find something that they would like out of the 5 wines I have, was almost just like a layup. It was pretty easy. It was a pretty easy path. So
how many bottles of wine in a pallet?
So on any given pallet, there is I think it's about 56 cases of wine. So
50. Okay, I'm gonna have to get my calculator out. So 56 cases of wine in a pallet. How many bottles in a case?
12.
So 12. So each pallet has 672 bottles of wine?
Yeah.
That's a lot of bottles
That's a lot of bottles of wine.
So the first pallet you got was 600. Was it one pallet, the first one?
Yeah, first one was one
So
pallet.
you were kind of like, let's minimize some risk here, 672 bottles.
Yeah.
What did you do with 672 bottles?
I started marketing the way I'd never marketed before.
Yeah?
Doing, I think Snapchat and Instagram videos of, hey guys, I got my wine here, blah, blah, blah. Started doing, I would go to wineries and just strike up conversations with, the winemaker or the owner of the winery, and just be like, hey, I actually have some wine in the trunk that if you want to try, this is my wine, blah, blah, blah. Works with...
You were hustling.
Yeah. I mean, just making phone calls, reaching out to people,
Respect.
telling friends and family, and then doing some small office tastings for the businesses that were actually going into the office at the time for Fridays,
So
COVID
loss
friendly.
leader, you take the wine in there, you pour them some wine. You don't care if you're losing a little product here because you're getting the brand on people's tongues.
Correct. Yep.
Respect. So of that 672 in the first pallet, how many are left?
None are left from that.
Dude, that's so legit. How much do you sell each of these bottles of wine for?
I think my average price is about $22.
So first pallet, I'm just doing some quick math right here, 15 G's.
Yeah.
Okay, so what do you do with the 15 G's from the first pallet?
Honestly, about 80% of it goes back into the business.
Buying more wine.
Buying more wine.
Okay,
Yeah.
so what happened with the next order?
So I am currently on that next order, and from a standpoint that I want to elevate the Harmony brand and make it more authentic to me, my goal for the rest of this year is to start working with Virginia wineries. I think it adds a little bit more authenticity to what I'm doing and more of a hands-on experience. So, after this shipment from Texas, I'm hoping to, work more with the wineries in the area and get Virginia grapes. One of the topics that I personally love is the Virginia versus California. And it's one of those topics that I think Virginia's highly underrated.
So underrated. And California, if you ask a Californian, they snub their nose at us. They're like, these guys are nothing compared to us.
Yeah.
But Virginia wine is legit.
It is. I think one of the things that is underrepresented is that Virginia has different climates. So with that, we're able to grow different types of grapes in different types of regions, hot, cold, humid, rocky. In California, it stays about 60 to 70s year-round all the time. The grapes are going to grow the same every time.
Okay.
With that, there's certain grapes that they do fantastic. I think Virginia can do just as well, but have better varieties.
So is the game plan source Virginia grapes to your Texas supplier, and Texas supplier bottles takes the Virginia grapes, turn it to wine?
So I would actually prefer to work with Virginia wineries.
Okay. So they would bottle them.
They would bottle them for me.
Oh, so sick, dude. So the Texas connection was like a proof of performance. It was a proof of concept.
Yeah.
And you just gross 15 G's on the first pallet. So in your mind, you proved the concept.
Yeah.
So now it's like, how do we make the concept better? And one of the ways you make the concept better is through the entire beverage game. Not all of it. A large part of the beverage game is marketing and branding.
Yes.
It's marketing and branding. Your product's got to taste good. That's almost like the expectation now. Now it's because there's so many products that taste good, it's almost a marketing and branding play. Is that fair?
Yeah, I would say that especially in the wine world, one of the first things that has to happen is it has to taste good.
Right.
And then from there, having a unique story and how things came about is just as important as what goes in the bottle. I think...
Dude, your story, dude. I could spin your story in so many different ways.
Yeah,
I can spin your story in so many different ways.
It's funny because I wanted to leave my job in the whole, I quit, guys, I'm out, I'm going to do my own thing.
Right.
But
you wanted to pull a Jerry Maguire.
Yeah.
And take the bowl of fish with you and the secretary.
Right. And
but it didn't happen that way.
It didn't happen that way.
Yeah.
And I think the way it happened was good for me. I know that for a lot of people, COVID was detrimental in ways that people probably can't even account for currently. But for me,
it was a blessing.
It was a blessing in disguise.
Yeah.
I mean, it forced me to stay inside and say, all right, well, you don't really have any other options. Go ahead and jump for your dreams.
Okay, we're gonna get back to building the brand and how we would build the brand here in a second. But before we do, I want to ask you this question. You get the grapes from Virginia. You do a strategic partnership with a lot of these vineyards and wineries have these bottling trucks that come to them.
Mm-hmm.
So like I've seen these massive bottling trucks come to these vineyards and wineries, and they're literally like labeling and bottling these wines literally on site. But it's this massive truck that's just driving around and doing it, and this truck's got a couple of peeps that do the work. Is that the concept?
Yeah, I mean, I would love to solely work with Virginia wines, get them to bottle and label and have the grapes grown here in Virginia so that, margins come down. I'm not working with not that Texas hasn't been great, but, working with a winery that's 10, 15, 20 minutes away, I know the owner.
And you could be on site.
Be on site.
You could be at the same time zone.
Right.
Yeah.
And then also getting the experience of being a part of the process from beginning to end to bottle, from grapes to bottle, I think is something that's unmatched.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So are you selling this online?
Yes.
You sell it online, and the website is atasteofharmony.com.
Yes.
Atasteofharmony.com. So I can go to the website. I'm on it right now. You hit the shop function, and on the shop function, I'm seeing a bourbon barrel red wine, 30 bones, a sangria for $20. I'm seeing a peach wine for 20. A 2016 Cabernet Sauvignon for 32. I'm seeing a Doe Pat with your logo on it. I'm seeing I don't know this one. Carbonated, what's the word?
Gewürztraminer.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was that?
Gewürztraminer.
Okay, I'm seeing one of those. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bottles.
Yes.
Okay. So what is the thinking? Limit what you have. That way you don't go too far and wide and they sit and stay stale.
Yeah, what I would like to do is have 4 to 5 wines available at all times, but mainly focus on what Virginia does really well.
Which is what?
I would say that they do the Petit Verdot really well. Merlot always hits well. A Cab Franc, and then for whites, depending on the region, you can get a great Chardonnay, which is one of my favorites. I'm learning one of my favorites, and then a sparkling. I think having a sparkling wine is just something that any and everybody drinks, whether you're a fan of sweet or dry, and that is what I want. I want to be able to have something for everybody, whether you like sweets or dries, and just something on the spectrum for everybody.
Help me understand this. Can you go to like Foods of All Nations in Charlottesville or the Market Street wine shop across the way with the wine and be like, carry this?
So
are there rules against that?
Yeah, there are.
There really are?
There are rules against. I mean, I don't want to say the rules against it. There's just red tape that you have to get through to do so. I think, the ABC laws that go into that. It's doable.
Okay.
You can do it. For me, I don't know if that's a model that I want to do.
Okay. How come?
So one of the main reasons that I started this was I wanted it to be easy for people to get to and feel like they could be comfortable going to get the wine or have the wine come to them, or be in a place where the wine was at. And I think that some of the wine spaces can be kind of limiting depending on.
You're saying bougie.
Yes.
Yeah, that's basically what you're saying.
They're bougie. They're bougie, and I think that sometimes it can be uncomfortable if you're like, I don't really want to go to the winery. I'd rather just go to Kroger or Harris Teeter and get this wine. But I wanted to be able to express that you can drink this great wine, go to an event where the wine is held, and it's not going to be super bougie. It's not going to be
approachable.
It's going to be super approachable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Respect. So, do you host the events yourself?
I do. So I've only done one small tasting.
Tell me about that.
That was a lot of fun. So
Was this in the basement?
No.
Okay.
I did this tasting earlier this year. It was for an office space, shared office space over in Stanton, and they had collab space. And so what we did was we set up. She was like, you can set up in the little kitchen area, and we'll do COVID safe, and everybody will be 6 feet apart. And so I set up, and she was like, just come in at 4, and I let everybody know they're usually done. And so it was about 4:45, and I hadn't seen a soul. And so I'm just like, ugh. But, I got a good crowd that came down. They loved the wine. They were able to do the small tasting, and I was able to talk about the wines and what they meant to me and why I started the company. So,
did you move some product?
I did. I actually sold about 5 to 10 bottles, so that was
worth it.
That was worth it. Yeah.
On top of the brand awareness.
Yeah.
This could have been one of your classmates, Andy Argon, that went to Albemarle High School. He's doing B2C pizzas, Detroit-style pizzas. Albemarle High School graduate.
Wow.
He makes them, uses social media to sell them, and delivers them himself, and is having some success with that. So that could be someone to consider, Andy Argon. Okay, let me throw this to you. Let's talk about building the brand. So you walked into an advertising agency. Some of the clients that we have are some of the most recognizable brands in the community. Scott Wagner comes to mind. Intrastate Pest and Service Companies comes to mind. Animal Connection. So what's the game plan to build a brand?
For me, building the brand is doing the pop-up events, doing tastings for small offices, and getting myself in the position to where when people think of what they're going to drink for the evening, it's Harmony or tequila or anything. So I want to be recognized with people's first come first serve choices when they think of drinking. And so doing so requires me to, get on TikTok or get on Instagram, doing the podcast and speaking with others about the brand. And that's been huge for me is the online presence and just not being afraid to hit the little red button on the phone and just be like, hey guys, this is what's going on, blah, 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 blah.
And that's a lot harder than people think.
It is.
Especially in the beginning. Walk me through some trials and tribulations of that, because I know this firsthand.
Yeah, I think when I first started doing it.
Did you forget to turn the mic on, or was it on mute?
For me, the biggest thing that I had to get over was restarting the video.
Yeah.
It's like, I messed up.
It doesn't have to be perfect.
It doesn't, and
Yeah.
so the second you flip over a word or don't say something the way you want to, you keep going because it's more authentic.
Yeah,
and then
it's
people,
human.
People relate to that more.
Right. What they don't relate to is like the Snapchat filter, like someone that looks like a beauty queen on the this, and then you know what I'm saying?
100%.
How did you get to that point? Just like practice and figuring it out?
So it's funny because I think back to a lot of times where I was on stage and didn't even realize that I was talking to an audience. I hosted my middle school talent show. I started this podcast. I was always doing some kind of giving some kind of speech or like a little keynote thing for the companies I was working for. So it almost came second nature, but it was just realizing, all right, do the same thing but with the phone, and then the podcast really helped as well.
So this came up on the show last month. We could not think of, on the show, a single African American entrepreneur in the beer or wine space.
Really?
In Central Virginia.
Yeah.
Well, Harmony Wines.
Yeah.
Talk to me about that. Because, dude, you could be like influencing the next generation of wine entrepreneur. Have you thought about that?
Yeah, it was brought to me by Antoine, Chef Antoine.
Yeah.
He
AB is his
AB
business.
Concepts.
Yeah,
Yep.
AB Concepts.
Yep.
He's been on this show.
Yeah.
He's a great dude.
Great guy.
Yeah.
When me and him first connected, one of the things he said to me was like, do you know that you're probably one of, if not the only, if not the first Black-owned wine company in the state of Virginia? And I was like,
Have you looked that up?
So,
because that should be part of your branding.
Yeah. I whenever I look it up, the only thing that I can find is there's a wine shop in Richmond
Okay.
But as far as, making the wine, sourcing the grapes, I haven't found anything.
Dude, and maybe even brewery as well.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, dude, that's like a leverage point that would get you on like everywhere.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, that is big time. How about the influencing of the next generation?
I think that's huge. I want this to be something.
You have younger brothers.
I do have 2 younger brothers, and I think that, getting them into the wine industry and seeing how they like the wine from me, they're like, "Yeah, this wine's great." And I'm like, I wasn't drinking wine at your age, but having.
How old are they?
So one just turned 22.
I was drinking Natty Light.
Yeah.
Light.
Yeah, at 20, 21, 22, I was not drinking wine.
What were you drinking?
Man, was I? I think it was
Smirnoff?
Smirnoff for sure.
Putting the Skittles in the Smirnoff?
Yeah, I think I tried that once.
Yeah?
Yeah, it was definitely Smirnoff and like Bud Lights and stuff like that.
What we could afford.
Yeah, what you could afford. And for me to be able to show this next generation, like, hey, wine is cool at a young age and it tastes good and it's going to go with a lot of the things you're going to eat. Just as good as buying that cheap bottle of Smirnoff that's probably going to give you a headache the next day.
Exactly. Neil Williamson, again, Well Hung Vineyards, he says, I can sell any bottle of wine once. The wine has to be there to sell it twice.
Yeah.
Talk to me about that.
So one of the things that I wanted to make sure that I accounted for when I first started the business was that first rush of customers that was friends, family, and people who first heard about it. They're always going to be, well, I don't want to say always, but they were going to be the first ones to come in, and then, it was going to taper off a little bit. So I wanted to make sure that my marketing and the wine that I had was good enough so that even if they were just buying because family and friends, they were like, oh, this is good. I'm coming back to buy more. And I think that was one of the things that, being an entrepreneur, you have to have tough skin. And a lot of people told me, it was actually good. And I was like, I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, I know, dude. That's kind of an insult,
right? And I
think it was actually good. It was like,
yeah.
Is that what you were thinking?
It was. I took that as like I wasn't sure that you could do correct.
Yeah.
And for me, having the tough skin to be able to put up with it is just like, smile and nod and just be like, yep, I'm glad you like it. You want some more? Right. And from there, it really took off for me to see that, oh, people aren't just buying because my name is on it. And if they are, they're coming back because they liked it.
Right.
And that
they'll
was
buy
good.
the first one because it's you.
Right.
But they're not going to buy the second one because it's you.
Yeah. And I think that's actually something that, CIC helped me do. One of the questions they ask you is, what's so special about your business? And every entrepreneur's first question is, of course, me. Like, yeah. I'm the one.
Right.
But you want to make sure that it's not only just you, but it's also your product going along with what he was saying, that, people aren't going to just buy 2, 3, 4 bottles and continuously do so if it's just your name attached to it.
We got to highlight Community Investment Collaborative. We have so many guests on this network from CIC. So please highlight the impact of CIC and who some of the mentors you worked alongside that help.
So for me, I thought that CIC was huge. I mean, I found out about them like a week after I got my wine.
Okay.
Applied in January, get accepted, and my group leader was Emily, and she was phenomenal. She does Emily Prince, and Shannon at CIC is just phenomenal. Some of what they took me from was, because I had just jumped in, no real experience on running a business. I knew kind of what I wanted to do, but no real way of implementing that plan. And what they did was they took a passion to a real business idea and business plan, and that kind of allowed me to see, okay, this is what I want to do for the next 3 months, 6 months, and this is how I line it up, and this is how I make it happen, and all these goals are achievable.
I love it. So what are the 3 and 5 year goals?
So I would say 3-year goal. I always jump for the moon, but 3-year goal would be to one day open up a wine bar on the downtown mall. I would love to do that. And then 5-year goal.
But is that the antithesis of B2C? Because then you're starting to get overhead, which means you're going to have to jack the prices.
So one of the things that I want to make sure I stay true to is having that price point and then the online presence.
Okay.
With the wine bar, I think creating the ambiance of a place that feels comfortable and welcoming to drink the wine that I have, I think is also a part of building that brand. And then, for 5 years, I would like to think that my wine is being mentioned when somebody says, "What are we drinking tonight? Grey Goose, Harmony, Ciroc? Like, what are we having?" And it just flows off the tongue that way. And I want it to be something where the East Coast is changed, and Virginia wines have had a little bit of spin on them based on conversations we've had and building up the Virginia wine brand.
All right, I'm gonna throw. I can't help but do this. I'm gonna throw this is the advertising agency guy in me here. Just throwing some free advice. You gotta go super deep with Facebook, because Facebook is trending older now, and older is still a key demographic of wine drinkers.
Yeah.
Consider the boosted post strategy if you're not already doing this.
Okay.
Boosted posts will amplify the brand so much. Boosted posts he obviously knows, but boosted posts for those that don't know is where you're paying to play to get your call to action message out there on social media. I think the first black-owned wine brand in the Commonwealth, that's like a lead.
Yeah.
And that'll get you in the front page of every newspaper, 6, 10, 11 o'clock newscast. This is a crazy idea here. Have you ever considered, instead of a brick and mortar wine bar on the downtown mall, where you're probably going to sign a 5-10-year lease at $4G a month, and then you're going to have to staff that joint? Have you considered a food truck wine tasting bar? So the food truck goes to events for wine tasting, like weddings, parties, anniversaries. And you're there, the food truck, you're still interacting with the customer. The food truck, 10G, you're not selling food.
Right.
You're doing tastings from the truck. And you can sell bottles from it as well.
It's funny you say that.
And you wrap it.
Yeah.
With branding.
I love that idea. I think my only hurdle at first, the first thing I could think of is the ABC
Will the ABC allow that?
I don't know. I'm sure that there might be a way to finagle.
Is there anybody doing wine tasting from a mobile food truck that does not sell food? And are you tied to the food sales requirements like restaurants are?
So I think I would
Neil Williamson, what is the answer to that? He's watching. Neil Williamson. Yeah. Neil Williamson, you know that's a brilliant idea that's watching right now. I know he's like, Jesus, that guy's brilliant right there.
Yeah.
Okay, no, he'll tell us there. What do you think?
I think you might be tied to some kind of food aspect,
okay,
but you may be able to get around it depending on the location that you're pulling up to. If you're pulling up to a brewery or a winery already that has food there or it's a catered event, you might be able to get around it, but I'm going to say you probably need some kind of food. But
dude,
I could
a Harmony
be wrong.
wine truck that had a window that opened, it had a ledge where like the whole part of the side of the truck opens. You have a ledge that's a little bit lower. You're pouring tastings of all your wine. Everyone gets that free taste, and then you sell the bottles from the truck.
Yeah.
That would
I like
be
it.
So dope.
I like it.
That would be, and your merch?
Yeah, I like it. I like it a lot.
So what was the 10-year goal?
10-year goal.
To be Kendall Jackson?
I think for me, it's not just the wine. I would love to dabble as well in bourbon or tequila and really build Harmony into a alcohol and spirits brand.
Oh.
Yeah.
So you want Harmony to be a portfolio of brands?
Yeah, I think that would be the 10-year goal for me.
Neil Williamson says, it is a great idea. It may be tied to food sales and location specific. And then he says, the C in ABC stands for control. I like that, Neil is. He's the well-hung guy. That could be a good contact.
It's funny. I know I messaged him on Instagram not too long ago, and I needed to reach back out and connect. So
Neil Williamson, you're on Instagram? I would never have guessed that, Neil Williamson. All right, so what's the advice, dude? You're such a pleasant interview. So easy to talk to. We've gone an hour and change here, and that's a testament to you. So how about this? What is the message that you would offer to the next generation of entrepreneurs, not just in the wine space, but folks that are saying, bypass college to go business for themselves. Hell, even trade school.
Yeah.
I mean, you got some plumbers and electricians that are making six figures.
Yeah.
And they got no student debt.
Yeah.
I mean, I got some friends right now that are like, I'm in my upper 30s here, that are still balls deep in debt.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And like these guys, literally it's going to be into their 50s till their student debt is paid off. So what is the message you say to someone that wants to A, be a business owner, entrepreneur, and B, bypass college?
I would say you have to have very thick skin. Having the ability to tune people out
Well said.
was huge for me. When you start your business, inevitably there's going to be people that are saying, this doesn't sound like a great idea, and they're going to give you every reason under the sun, and a lot of that can be their projections of what you can and cannot do. Of what you can and cannot do is actually them, what they can and cannot do.
They're projecting themselves onto you.
Right, and one of my favorite lines is, don't put that evil on me, Ricky Bobby.
Yeah,
so
don't put that evil on me, Ricky Bobby.
I think having that thick skin will definitely help people. And it sounds very simple, but it's one of the things that was very instrumental in me doing my own thing and just going for it.
Respect. 13 years ago, my business is turned 13 May 31st.
Oh, wow.
13 years ago, I started this business in a recession in a condo that if my two buddies hadn't have moved into the 2 extra rooms, I would have defaulted on the mortgage. Before launching the business, I was doing sports radio, 12 ESPN affiliates, 2 TV shows on NBC 29, and writing for the newspaper Daily Progress. And I walk into the condo, and my mom and dad are there, surprisingly. My girlfriend at the time, who's ex-girlfriend, she was the wrong gal, and 3 or 4 of my homies were in there, and they basically did an entrepreneurial intervention saying, this is the stupidest idea you ever have.
Wow.
You're making some bank right now, don't do this.
Yeah.
And then that just only motivated me even more to like go down harder and make it work.
Yeah, yeah.
Did you have anything like that?
Yeah, I did actually.
And who was it? Was it someone close, inner circle?
So we went to dinner, it was like a family function. We went to dinner, and I had been pushing the entrepreneur thing, but hadn't jumped in yet. And I was like, yeah, I kind of want to get away from working for the man. And they're like, yeah, you could be begging the man for a job back. And I was like, and everybody's laughing. And I was like, okay. And so.
You want to say who it was?
It was uncles, mom, dad, brothers.
Oh, so it's everybody.
And so I don't remember exactly who was laughing, but there was enough people laughing that I was like, okay, all right. And so, I get my wine, and one of the best feelings was to send the text to the family group chat and say, I guess the man just ordered some wine. And so, having the ability to take that moment and be like, okay, yes, people are going to want to support you. Yes, they want to see you do well. But at the end of the day, it's always going to be back on you. Always be back on you to do what you want.
Dude, you just gave me goosebumps. I swear to God, you gave me goosebumps. Anything I can do, Judah, let's take some photos of this and get it up on the our Instagram. Let's get it up on our Facebook and Twitter, and let's link and tag to his pages with the photos we have. Please, please, please. Anything I can do. How about the back to black here?
Yeah. So that was actually one of the people I had on my podcast,
okay.
AJ. She started Back to Black this past year, and she's in DC, and they were doing pop-ups for their specialty cocktails, which was, they're fantastic. These are some of the best bartenders in the city, and they did pop-ups all over the city for different events, and I partnered with them specifically on this sparkling rosé. I remember taking it up to her, and she was just like, all right, yeah, and she was like, oh, we love this. We're doing this deal today. Like, I need a case.
Nice.
Yeah, so that was my first deal, and
this was your first deal?
That was my first deal.
Respect. God damn. Dude,
Yeah.
You're gonna kill it.
Yeah.
I love everything you stand for, man. I sincerely mean that. Anything you stand for, anything you need, happy to help.
Yeah.
Lee Elberson, you were right. Thank you for making this interview a reality with the introduction, Lee Elberson. Please check this fine gentleman out at atasteofharmony.com. Atasteofharmony.com. I will say it again, atasteofharmony.com. Follow him on Instagram, Harmony_wine, and soon on Facebook.
Yes,
and
soon on Facebook.
Matt Harmon, thank you very much for joining us. Guys, tomorrow on the I Love CVille show, we will have what is tomorrow? Let me look at the calendar. Ooh, we have Detective Mike Wells of Albemarle County, and he's also the head, I think it's a union, of the union in the area, just talking about what it's like to be a police officer in these parts. So that's going to be an interesting conversation tomorrow. And we're going to have at our 10:15 show, Real Talk, we're going to have Keith Smith on the program. Ooh, this could be something that helps you. We're going to have the Dairy Market crew, the people, the executive team behind Dairy Market on Preston Avenue is going to be on set. Executive team behind Dairy Market on set at 10:15 tomorrow. So 2 shows tomorrow, 10:15 at 12:30 on the I Love CVille Network. As always, my friends, thank you for joining us. Spread the cheer, spread the word, tag a friend. Harmony Wine, it's what we're drinking tonight. You guys take care. Have a good afternoon. Dude,
That was good, man.
you killed it.
Thank you, man.
Seriously.
Thank you.
You killed it.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming on, too. We went 140.